So I'm quite excited about this. He is the founding engineer of this sort of, it's a little site. I'm not quite sure if you guys have heard of it. I mean, mostly you'll just see posts of cats up there. I don't know, have you guys heard of Reddit? Anyone Reddit? Yeah, tiny site. I am kidding, of course. It is one of the most iconic and most used community platforms in the world. And again, our next speaker is their founding engineer. I've got to go into his background a little because I find it very curious. Is it okay for me to, I'm saying it. Okay. So he's a software engineer by vocation. His first attempt at a career started with him finishing a PhD in experimental physics at Harvard, where he learned, get this, about the importance of modeling, good stuff, critical thinking, love it, statistics, and welding. He uses the first three skills regularly. The final years of his PhD were concurrent with him breaking into startups. And this is that wonderful story, the Reddit story, getting accepted to the first Y Combinator class, where he subsequently met Steve and Alexis and became Reddit's first employee 5 months into the company. It's a pity that he never used his welding, really. I mean, I'm sure it was a fantastic course. Let's give him a warm welcome. Here is the CTO of Reddit, Chris Lowe.
So I think I have nowhere to go but down from that intro. Thanks everyone for showing up. I think I'm the person who stands between you all and drinks. So hopefully I can end your day either with a little bit of delight or lull you to sleep in this lovely warm room we're all sitting in. I'm here to talk about Reddit and especially about communities. So my talk is about the do's and don'ts of dealing with communities. I think my intro's already been done, but you know, I've been at Reddit for 8 out of 14 years. So have some insights. I'm looking forward to the Q&A section later. I'd say that with the Q&A, I will either have an answer or I can make one up that actually will be indistinguishable from the truth. I'd also like to call out Alex Lay, my partner in crime here. He is our VP of product. He has the deepest understanding of our lovely little product of any person I've ever met. And he's been the driver of a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in here. So, you know, real quick, I think we did the intro about Reddit. Reddit is, at the moment, we're about 500 employees. We're kind of a big deal on the internet because our 500 employees are actually running more than 350 million monthly active users. That means we're outnumbered about 1 million to 1 by our user base, which is, you know, it's a fair ratio. We're also the world's largest network of communities. We're a little different from what has become the now traditional social network model in that our users themselves aren't connected, but they're connected through communities. And so we like to show that as this kind of big tangle of communities. Here's a map of Reddit. It's a beautiful picture to me. Every single kind of idea and passion that you might have probably has a Reddit community attached to it. And so we have, you know, evergreen topics that are kind of large and small. We have trending communities. Communities themselves are self-organizing. Like, we actually have very little involvement in what communities grow and are fostered. And so it's all about users finding their niche, and if they can't find the niche, making their niche by making a new community and encouraging other users to join. And so, you know, kind of a quick little anatomy here. We've got this color-coded, goes down the list of gaming, lifestyle, entertainment. You know, just to kind of give you some notion of the size. We're telling you, not that we measure things in page views anymore, but, you know, billions of monthly active page views on Reddit. And so, some of the things you might see, we actually have a whole bunch of fashion communities, a whole bunch of, we have male fashion advice, a good example. We have makeup addiction. We have a lot of great conversations around fashion. In fact, I think in a lot of ways we've started becoming the kind of trendsetters in like the kind of that biggest little site that no one's ever heard of. The dive bar where all the cool people hang out is the way to think about it. We have tons of sports communities, and in fact, if anything, I think what I love about Reddit is the fact that you know, even though there's so much alignment around your sports team, there's civil conversations around sports on Reddit, which I think is a totally unique position. It's Red Sox fans and Yankees fans having civil conversations. What's new? We also have communities dedicated to news and have become a major platform for spreading live information. During the last couple of hurricanes that swept the US, we had a whole bunch of self-organized communities sharing information. Basically, us and Twitter become major vectors for sharing what's going on, what's safe. When traditional methods of communication break down, we kind of start filling that niche, which is amazing. We also are a pretty sizable Q&A platform. The AMA model that we have, the Ask Me Anything model, was one of those things that was completely developed by our user base that's turned into its own thing. And outside of these subreddits dedicated to AMAs, we have just communities building their own. Fun fact, we're about twice the size, roughly, of Quora in terms of questions and answers. And just kind of as a side effect of our existence. And we actually have things happen in the real world, the side effect of things we do. We had the March for Science that happened a few years ago, was an outcropping of a really kind of off-the-cuff comment on Reddit, and it turns into a multi-city rally. Years before that, we had the Rally to Restore Sanity, which clearly in this timeline was a total failure, but we tried. And of course, gaming. There's a lot of gaming communities on Reddit. We've kind of become the default gaming forum, which is a really terrifying thing for me to discover a couple years ago. Just by virtue of the fact that there's a focus on conversation, it's become the place where people talk about their favorite games. And so when you talk about communities at Reddit, there's kind of engaging with communities sometimes feels like this. Here's a giant forum of people watching people play video games. And sometimes it feels like this. And so what I would like to talk about today is some wins and some losses in that department of how actually this interaction has worked and how it hasn't. And I want to print these as kind of like case studies. So let's start off kind of going through a quick timeline. That's my clickers. There you go. All right, 2016, first anecdote I have. 2016 was actually the year that we launched our mobile apps. It's a pretty late in the game time to launch mobile apps, and we did a big press surge early in that year. We had a great sizzle video, as one does nowadays, on YouTube, and we had our site announcement. Here's Alex giving his announcement. This is shortly after Alex had started, and so he actually made it a point to personalize himself and try to explain who he is to the community. Described that we're launching our new apps. And the immediate response, as you might expect, was, why should I use your app? There's an entire ecosystem of third-party Reddit apps out there. There's Reddit is Fun, Bacon Reader. There's been more in the last couple of years. There was concern around us closing down our API, as some other nameless companies had done in the past by launching our own. There was also concern that we were basically taking an old model from Microsoft, this embrace, extend, extinguish model, which is once we've actually kind of cornered the market on apps, we'll shut everyone else down and somehow count our money evilly with a maniacal gleam in our eye. So pitchforks ensued. So I'll make this into a question for the audience. Here is the thing we did. We had spent 10 years not building apps. We built an app, and then we launched it with a big press when it was ready. Should we do nothing? Who says do nothing? Hands, do nothing. Apologize to the community. That was not 100% turnout. I'd like to you all fail. I'm sorry. Okay, the answer was, in this case, do nothing, let it all blow over. Why? Well, here's why. Here's the traffic of our apps for the last couple of years. The blue line is the traffic of our mobile, of the non-first party clients. Both of them are growing. They're growing on different bends for sure. And this is really about the fact, what we learned here is that we initially had done some beta testing with users, but the 1,000 users that we actually involved in beta testing were insufficient to actually justify to the rest of the community all the work that we had done with them. So they couldn't really convince the rest of the community that we could do that. Comment threads are also not great for announcements. The best you're going to get is going to be criticism of what you're working on. One of my favorite kind of lazy comments that we see a lot of is, why are you working on this when there's these other 30 things you could be working on? And that's a very kind of tough conversation to have. It's like, well, we're going to work on something. And then really the last one is like show, don't tell. Like we built it, we launched it, we just have to prove it's going to work. And the way to prove it's going to work is to keep iterating on it and keep hammering at it and be determined. Okay, 2017. Trying not to be a low blow here. Anyone here from EA? I apologize in advance for the next section if you're from EA. Anyone know what this is in Battlefront? This is a loot box. A loot box was this idea of if you want to unlock some of the really great talent in Battlefront, of course everyone wants to be Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or Boba Fett, you had kind of two choices. You could either spend about 4,000 hours playing the game and like accumulating time, or you could spend money on loot boxes, basically unlocking them. Now the funny thing here is if you do the math, this means that you're being priced at about 50 cents an hour for your spare time, which is probably about right. The side effect of this is, this of course is a rather unpopular thing to do, and so EA had an AMA where they were trying to justify why they were doing this, and their response was, the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. This was the most downvoted comment of all time on Reddit. I don't know if you can read that, but the score is negative 660,000 points, which is really impressive compared to the previous ones. And also, for some reason, people gave it gold. Like, I don't know why, I can't connect the two things. This didn't go over well, and this is the result. So in this case, ask the same question again. Remember, raise your hands here. The situation is they beta tested new monetization in their game, users complain on this pay-to-win thing, and then the social media team defends decisions and gets downvoted to hell. What do? Who says do nothing? Okay, sorry, I forgot to say the apology. The answer was actually apologize, but with scary air quotes. So what they did was they did the AMA is now over announcement, which is a great way to say this has not gone very well. Increasing the font means it's really final. And the community just kept kind of ratting on them. It's like, what, don't you think that loot boxes are predatory by nature? They were predicting that they're going to say like, oh, we're going to analyze it and we'll come back. The response was basically that. People need to be patient. We're figuring it out. 4 months pass. Battlefront officially dishes loot boxes. So this is a case where actually they legitimately were beta testing a feature in the game. It was actually not for release, but by virtue of the fact that they were kind of doubling down, it made it into more of a problem than it should have been. So the lessons learned here is don't apologize unless you really mean it. People remember. Don't engage in a community unless you want a real debate. The point of an AMA is not to be a PR platform, it's to actually talk. And that kind of comes back to show, don't tell. Like if you have to be prepared to have your mind changed in a conversation. That's why we have conversations. Okay, next up, speaking of drastic things, our redesign, 2018. So for those of you who don't know, we did a major redesign in 2018 where we basically modernized our web stack. It had been 10 years since the last redesign, so this is a big deal for us. We had these great looking mobile apps we finally built out. We had 2 years of time iterating them. Because they were fresh mobile apps, we could actually make sure that they were based on sensibilities we were looking for with our new experience. And so we could actually build our website off of this look. And here's what it looked like on the website in early 2018. A bit of a drastic shift for the two of them. Not too different from what it looked like in 2005, to be honest. So really some legacy here to deal with. And our users kind of noticed. This is actually one of my favorite tweets of all times. So this is actually this is 2017 before we actually launched it. So we were already, the redesign was already a twinkle in our eye at this point, and this for me kind of solidified the fact that we had to do it. Okay, so how would you announce redesigning Reddit? Keeping in mind, nothing could possibly go wrong here. I think the Onion said it best. This will likely roll out smoothly and no one will have any complaints. And in this case, I'm actually going to kind of spoil it rather than giving the poll because I messed the poll up last time anyway. So in this case, monitoring the health of the community. We spent 2 years building out mod tools and working out features the community actually wanted. We previewed ideas rampantly. We actually we not only did a beta test of 1,000 users, we actually did a beta test and we kept increasing the size of the test community. So it was almost you can think of it a little bit like inoculation. We would add more users into the mix, and then we had users that we'd already kind of, I don't know, converted as an extreme case. We'd already convinced them that we were working with good intent, and so they could actually act as our advocates rather than us having to justify everything again. And then we just kept doing that multiple times and iterating. And at the same time, we were iterating the product and actually improving it as it went along. We made sure that we only had real debates when we wanted to have a real debate. Don't open up a question if you don't want to hear the answer, is the way to think about that. And then the nice thing about that is, again, because we had a larger and larger user base, we actually had users defending us in this community setup of saying, like, no, actually they're working hard on this. And we really shipped continuously for 18 months. This was not a cut over, quick switch. This was a like slowly grind and iterate. And so, let's get this. Oops. Generally, in this case, also reasonably good press. I wouldn't say that this was a seamless launch. I mean, it never is, but it worked really well. We're now up to 75% of our users are using the new stack. I should mention, we never actually shut off the old stack. You can still get to it from old.reddit. If anyone wants to stick with it, they can, but the idea is that we want to make it compelling and actually show that it's the better one. Okay, last one, RPN. This is a brand new thing that happened this year. So RPN is this thing we launched, our first attempt at doing video streaming on Reddit. And so we decided, since we were going to do it as kind of like a new thing, it was a brand new product, we went for a purposely kind of kitschy sort of 80s public access look, down to like the VHS kind of, jitter, and a little bit of blur. And so we did kind of the same thing. This is us, making our, we do repeat mistakes sometimes. We made an announcement on the site about doing it. The intent here was to do a limited one week release to kind of play with it, and to see what happened. And the responses we got were kind of what you expect here. One was, can we please get it off the front page? We had allocated some space for it there. It's like, okay, so we've messed up some of these browsing experience. Why wasn't this announced? Why is it not placed in its own subreddit? Why are you doing it this way? Why did you do this? Reddit doesn't want to be a link sharing discussion site. They want to be a click farm. That's apparently what we have planned. We're going to cater to Instagrammers and influencers. And it's pointless. If I want to watch a live stream, there's all sorts of other places to do it. So we've learned that we took up somebody's real estate. We don't know what we're doing. We are clearly going to become Instagram now that we did this. And nobody wants that. And so in this case, what we did was we stayed calm and we showed. So we launched it and we saw stuff like this. It was amazing. Within the joke about cats, within 5 minutes, people were streaming their cats. And it was cats first. I don't know why it's always cats first. The dogs came later, but then the dogs were more popular. I don't get it. We had a dude doing DJing shirtless. And doing a really great job DJing. It was really a little strange. We had somebody actually, I don't know how this guy in the middle had bandwidth, but he was actually flying a plane, live streaming, and people drawing cartoons, just showing, it was this wonderful collection of like stupid human tricks, just kind of appearing organically. And just like kind of, some people wanted to keep their anonymity and were just wearing masks. Why not? It's cool. There was a whole meme that it generated about the B-movie. People were reading the B-movie script. Cool. And so I think that the nice thing about this is we actually did have a community based around it. We had r/pan. And when we shut it off after a week, they were like, why did you shut it off? That was great. It was at the level of people felt like it was a return to the original bones of the internet. Like it was that kind of just some fun stuff going on. Nobody's trying to get anything from it other than just to kind of show off what they're doing, show off their stuff. There's no influencers here. There's a shirtless guy doing DJing, for goodness sake. And so we're continuing to iterate it, we're continuing to play with it, and the point is we've actually managed to find users who actually like the experience. So just some numbers. We had 45 million stream plays, 21-minute average total watch time per user. We had thousands of unique broadcasters. What we actually did was we limited the number of active channels to make sure we could actually moderate it. And the peak stream saw upwards of 400,000 viewers. And this was actually, I mean, for us, it was amazing in that this is a totally internally built, homegrown project that we got up in about 8 months. So I'm really excited on the way this turned out. And so I think one of my favorite responses, oh yeah, okay, so Gizmodo posted, and they said, "It's hard to shock the staff at Gizmodo. Collectively, we spent millions of hours covering everything. Today, however, we discovered something truly surprising. Reddit Public Access Network, the platform's new experiment live streaming." So generally good press, generally good time, and really a reinforcement of the fact that our users are more creative than us. This is kind of the cornerstone of the way we operate. We work through communities, and we assume that our users actually know better than we do, so our job is to facilitate them being creative. Okay, so just a quick recap, overall lessons learned here. Large and flexible beta tests are really important. We've done that time and time again, and it's worked. Allow your community to have real debates. Real debates means be involved in the conversation, be willing to have your mind changed. And show, don't tell. And so with that, I would like to say thank you for having me, and open the floor for questions.
Hello. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Thanks for the talk. So I'm not an avid Reddit user, so please, sorry or correct me.
You must be so much more productive than the rest of us.
Yeah, I doubt it. So please correct me if I say anything crazy here, but what I do on Reddit all the time is stream NBA basketball. And so my question, which comes through my head every time I do this, is my buddy down the street pays for this. Why does he pay for this? Oh my God, I hope the NBA doesn't find out about this. Oh my God, the NBA must know about this already. Wait, why isn't the NBA or Reddit doing anything about it? Like, why isn't Reddit in trouble? Excuse me for letting this happen on their platform. So my question is, those brands and logos that you put up early in the presentation, are you actually formally partnered with them? And then the follow-up is, you guys have a lot of content, like people's comments, words that you can, I'm sure, mine, and I'm wondering if you do that for yourself or to provide information like sentiment to those brands based on their channels. There are 8 million people talking about the NBA.
Good question. So I'd say we just actually entered into a partnership with the NFL, and that was actually really exciting. It was like in the last month where we're actually working with them on a bunch of AMAs and a bunch of kind of content. I think for the streaming side, man, streaming is okay. So two answers to that. One is that to go back to there's 500 of us and several million users. It's kind of impossible for us to have eyes in all places at all times, and so we rely heavily on in the case of things that might be considered illegal, DMCA takedowns is the main unit of that, and we are quick to action those when we find them. User reporting is a big one. No, it's one of those things where well, the other part is again, this is a tough answer because we're not hosting the streaming, we're providing access to a place that has streaming, and so it's this weird gray area of there's a link out to another site and we can't figure out what it is unless somebody tells us what it is. So it's just I would call it a giant mess, would be the best way to describe it.
Hi Chris, thanks for the talk. My question to you is, you mentioned how when you were redesigning you also monitor the health of the community. So I wanted to know, what are some factors or things that you look into to assess at the health of a community?
That's a good one. So I think that there's a bunch of things that go into that. One is when it comes to things like, okay, so there's some base numbers, which is submission rates, voting rates, comment rates, just underlining how active is the community, is that trending in a good direction. We also have discussions with, it comes back to moderation as being the main way that we assess health. We generally have relationships with moderators where they're able to reach out to us and let us know what's going on. We also have gotten more deep into starting to detect automatically things like negative content, harassment, anything that's kind of the tougher bits of the internet that exist on any kind of public forum, and make sure that we have basically a pulse on what's the current baseline rate, is it going up, is it going down, is the community kind of healthy in that regard. And so it's just kind of a lot of things that go into that. But we do mostly rely on, we try to allow as much, the community model means that the moderators effectively have their hands on the reins and they can kind of keep control of the community. And so we do our best to make sure that they're able to maintain control so that everyone kind of benefits.
So my question is around the incentive of coming back to communities. Back when you started, how did you discover that? Like, one of the aspects of building a community is having people engaged again and again. So my question is around how do you get back people, like how do you discover that back in the day to incentivize the users and start building a community around Reddit?
You mean sort of like the return journey? Okay, so this is a funny one. So one of the distinct things about Reddit that we didn't realize up front is that Reddit, as it's built, promotes virality, but it itself is not viral. So the original model of Reddit was actually a big link sharing site. Like the 1.0 version was links to external content and no comments even, right? So we had comments 6 months later, and we've mostly grown just through this kind of gradual, slow, organic, like people discover it. It has actually a very steep learning curve. It's not in the same vein as most sites. It doesn't look like the traditional website these days. And so what we found though is it's kind of sticky. So like once a user actually gets it, they can't unget it, and they kind of like get really deeply involved really quickly. And so the story we've heard time and time again from users, and this actually helps to influence some of our onboarding thinking right now, is I kind of knew about Reddit for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and I kind of saw it in SEO and like Google results, and then I read this thing, and then I came back every day. And it's always a different thing. It's always like they discover a site, part of the site that is very special to them, or like hits some niche they have, or their photography, and that's what actually is the catalyst. And so what we've been trying to do is minimize the time between first time we see a user and then getting them to their thing.
Hi, Chris. My name is Shagun, and I just want to say I loved your talk. So I'm 16 years old, and I'm super passionate about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So over the past year, I've gotten deep into actually learning, teaching myself how to code and build different machine learning models. And the incentive to do that is actually be able to build something that is of value to other people. And I was curious about what are some of the experiences that you had before starting Reddit that helped you overcome the challenges while building Reddit?
Oh boy, that's a good one. So I think my background is actually originally academic. So I was doing a science degree, and I think that in terms of like just raw experience, it was important. Learning from every single failure is probably the one that comes back the most. Like the successes you have are relatively small, and the failures are the ones where you get all the information that you're going to have. And so even just don't see a failure as being a total loss. It's a way to actually improve and get better. And I think especially think of it as, for machine learning, like training is part of the process of making sure you have data. Failures are one way to acquire data in life. I think when it comes to specifics on Reddit, Reddit is one of those really magical things that I don't think we realized early on that we'd hit something until we had to deal with the fact that the traffic was growing and we couldn't do anything about it. Magical experiences are lucky. So hard work is important. Luck is also very important. And I think anyone who says otherwise is probably not thinking really hard about the decisions they made. Or the decisions they didn't make.
Hey, Chris. Here.
Hi. Oh, hey.
So Reddit is obviously really good at managing communities, and it seems like political leaders are not. And
really?
Yeah, I know. So do you see this kind of design and these learnings foraying into the political system? I mean, I think that we've seen the people that lead our country don't even have an understanding or the foresight to understand the implications of the systems that you guys are designing. So, and I know Alexis is pretty forward about his social issues. So is there thought of taking this to the political realm?
Yeah, I think that, so this isn't directly an answer to your question, but I think the reason why it works on Reddit is because we do still emphasize long-form discussion as the method for communication over this kind of increasingly soundbite model of discourse. the fact that we actually have healthy debates is as much an outcropping of that as also the fact that we've kind of over the years fostered a community where skepticism and discussion are kind of part of it. I would hope that model applies equally well outside of Reddit. I would also be perfectly happy if that just became a primary method of discourse with politicians, for example. Like, we've done a fair number of AMAs with politicians, and universally they find it a very positive experience because they actually get a chance to really engage, as opposed to kind of having to worry about some quip that they say taken out of context on some news channel 2 hours later or 3 hours later, and then doing damage control. I don't know, but I hope so, would be the short answer.
Hey, just a quick question around your strategy in rolling out the new stack to the users. Did you pick specific persona to roll that out to, and what was your strategy in expanding that user base?
Rolling out which bit?
The new stack to the new user base.
Yeah, so we did that in stages. The way that we rolled it out was we initially started with we've had a beta community for a very long time. That's kind of like a core trusted user base that is willing to deal with our kind of initial buggy releases. We still do that for also our mobile releases, where we actually ship them to beta first and have a bunch of testers. The way that we did that was we gradually kind of climbed up from users that we had relationships with through to moderators in broader and broader chunks. And then just started opening it up to more of like a, hey, if anyone wants to actually join the beta, please click on this link. And doing that in a way where we were going from effectively the small, known, trusted users out to much more tenuously connected, but somewhat trustworthy users. That helped, I think, to make sure that it was an eased release. Then the final cutover was really hey, here's a setting. If you want to turn it on, go turn it on. If not, cool. And then we've had to rely effectively on our own merits to encourage people to make that change.
Hey, wait, over here. Yep. Wait.
Yeah.
Am I talking right?
Oh, hey.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Hey, so I'm Samarth, and for like the past little while, my main goal has been building product people love. And so I've been learning a lot online about Polygram, Sam Altman, people from YC, just trying to learn a lot about how to build a successful startup. And so my question to you is, what are some things you wish you knew before building Reddit?
Oh man, counterfactuals are hard. So I think that so an easy one is one of the problems of building Reddit is that we were learning how to scale websites at the same time we were building Reddit. So we ended up having a lot of early day downtime, not because of any other reason than we didn't know what we were doing. That's a much more well-trodden path now. We were talking about 14 years ago where there wasn't really a way to do that. So that's that's definitely one big one. I think that the insight about the fact that we really work through communities and the fact that we work by enabling our users to be creative is something that's came a little bit later. And I think if we had, I don't know if this would have changed our way of operating earlier on, but I think it would have definitely helped inform like what products we prioritize and like what features we release if we had known that kind of sooner. Who has the mic? This is like a... All right, we'll just stop pick. What are the thoughts about monetizing Reddit? We would like to. No, so the current model we have is mostly baked into ad sales has been the main one. So we have a pretty dedicated team that's building out a full ad auction and an ad stack. And that also other strategies we've been involved. We've had a self-serve offering for a while with advertising where users can actually just buy ads on Reddit. And then the third thing is around Reddit Gold. So Reddit Gold is this kind of, not really so much a currency as like a way to give little awards to people based on just feel good. And that's actually been a really great way to have a virtuous cycle of people give us money and they feel good and the user feels good and we feel good.
Have to, do this, cut off questions now. Can we give him a big hand? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Fascinating. Wonderful to learn when not to apologize.